Hello, it's Mark Humphries from Pinner Bridge Club. This is a third video to demonstrate the use of the EBUScore bridge scoring program for pairs events. I'll be referring to the quick reference guide that I've prepared for scorers at Pinner, and I'll also be demonstrating how to do the tasks in the program itself. Now, referring to this quick reference checklist, everything on the left of the page has been completed. So we've already covered in the previous films how to set the event up, how to specify the movements. And if we followed that, the bridge mates are now in use, play has started. And if we actually have more than one section in play, we've also covered how to manage that in video 2. So in this film, what I want to look at is the remaining tasks on the quick reference checklist, page 2, shown on the right here. And I'm going to cover what to check during and after play, how to make adjustments and corrections to scores, how to print the results, and finally how to upload to both bridgewebs and the EBU. Okay, so first up is something we always recommend the scorer does during the event, and that is firstly to check the names of the players are correct. Do they agree with the names on the table slips? If not, somebody may have entered the wrong 3-figure club pin number into the bridge mates. Secondly, if we've got visitors at the club, how do we make sure their details are properly entered and their EBU membership numbers are assigned? And the reason we say to do this during the play, if possible, is obviously because if you leave it to the end, then players start to disappear, so it becomes much harder to check any details. So let's jump over to the program for a few examples. So this is where we left off from the previous 2 videos. The bridge mates are running, and we're in the bridge mates scoring section of the program. I'll just change the background to make it easier. We're in the bridge mates scoring section of the program on the results tab. And this is a great place to monitor the progress of the whole event from. And you'll see that as each round is completed, the rows here turn blue. So obviously you'll at some point we'll get all of the rows blue to indicate all the scores are in. But let's assume now that we've got an opportunity, perhaps there's a sit out, or we're dummy, and we've got the opportunity during the event to check on the player names. So how do we do that? So let's leave this screen. There's no problem with leaving that screen at all. We can go straight back to the event menu. And back at the event menu, the quick reference guide step 23 tells us that we should hit player names. And this shows us now all the names of the players playing in the events as entered into the bridge mates. So what we've got here is a totally fictional database. I'm using fictional names, and I've created a database within EBUScore to cover these players. So first thing to do is notice there's a few different colors here, and I'll talk you through what the colors mean, and then we can look at a couple of other things that we need to look at on this page. So firstly, dark green. Pair 1, that's easy. There's a code there. It's the missing pair. So this is a movement with half a table, and obviously it's been set up so that pair 1 is the phantom pair. So you don't need to do anything about that. That shouldn't concern you anymore. Don't be concerned with it with a green empty couple of boxes there. The other thing to notice is you've got both some blue and some white boxes here. So typically most players at the club and most names at most events will appear with a white background on them. That just means that they're club members. Whereas if they're shown in blue, EBUScore likes to differentiate between club members and non-members. So the people in blue are people who've played at the club before. They are known to the scoring database, but they are not designated as a club member. For the point of view of the way we do things at Pinner, it makes absolutely no difference whether you're a member or a non-member for scoring the event. So as a scorer, you really don't need to be concerned whether names are in white or blue, but I just thought I'd explain that. It's a feature of the way EBUScore works, not something we need to get too concerned about. So the 2 things we want to do are to check the names. So we would check the names of the players here. Are they the right names when checked against the paper table slips that players have filled in at the beginning of the event? And let's assume that we've done that, and we actually find a problem here with pair 4. And we find that David Beckham, he's down as playing with Victoria Beckham, but actually he's not playing with Victoria Beckham. The name on the table slip is Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, so clearly what's probably happened is somebody's put in the wrong number for that person and the program has misidentified them with the wrong name. So let's delete the incorrect name. That's easy. We selected on it, we just press the delete key and it's gone. Okay, we now need to put in the right name. So rather than risk typing and getting the name spelt wrong and things like that, what I suggest you do is you come down here to the right hand corner of the screen where this shows the database of players that are available in the EBUScore program. Now obviously for real there's 421 entries in our club membership database. It might be quite hard to find the right one. It might take you a bit of scrolling down in alphabetical order to find the right person. So quickest way to do that, remember we're looking to find an entry for Cristiano Ronaldo to see if he's got an entry in the club. So we just click on the R tab down here, the R tile, and that shortens the list down to everybody with a surname of R. So there he is, Cristiano Ronaldo. Let's click where we want his name to appear. So we want him to be in pair 4. So we've got that flashing there, and we click on him. So we just do that again because something went wrong there. There we are. He's in. Excuse me. So we've now corrected the right player is now playing for pair 4. The right person is now south. And obviously, if there were other errors, we'd do that as well. Okay. So the only other thing to do is look at the blank space here. So the blank space here is created because the program does not know who the player is that's entered their details into the bridge mate. So it's very likely that they are a visitor. They've not played at the club before, so they don't have an entry or they don't know their entry in the club database to identify themselves to bridge mates. So let's assume it's a visitor, and the procedure would be to get their name by getting them to fill in an orange slip that that's our normal procedure for processing visitors. So let's assume they filled in a form, and in this fictional event the scorer finds that the person the visitor who's playing with Donald Trump is my name. Let's use that. So this person has put his name in. Now he's shown up as a visitor, so he's not known to the club, and that's why his name's come up in yellow. Yeah, so he's now denoted as a visitor on the list of names here. So now that we've got his name, we need to add that person to the database so that next time he plays, he is identified, and we don't have to go through this again. So let's click on Add Visitors to Database. So if there are more than one visitors, we do this all at the end. And it would say add visitors marked in yellow to the player database, and let's do that. And now it's asking me to search the EBU's database of players to find the EBU number and details for that player. And of course that's something we do want to do. So we'll click on yes, and the program will now search against the EBU's whole database of players to find somebody who matches that name, and it's found somebody. Now if this was a more commonly occurring name, it might have found a whole bunch of matches, and you would then have to decide which one of the names on the lists here is the right person for the person who's actually playing at the club. But since this is there's only one entry, this is the person, so we're going to click yes. And now the update is complete. And now what's happened is it's no longer shown as a yellow as a visitor. It's now shown as somebody who is a non-member because it's blue, but they are now known to the database, so their details are now included in the database. And actually they've been given a club ID, so 29. If they put that number in the bridge mate next time they played at the club, then the program would be able to identify them. That's all we need to do really with regard to the instructions under during play. So we've corrected names and we've dealt with the visitors, and I've explained what the colours mean. So that's everything I really wanted to do on this screen. So I'm going to click OK, and that will take us back to the event menu. Okay, so back at the event menu, what do we need to do now? Well, let's refer once more to the quick reference guide and see what it tells us. So the next section of the quick reference guide is headed once play is finished. And so there's some steps to follow here around checking the results are in, looking for anomalous scores, and making any corrections, confirming with the director. So that's what we shall do. So what we need to do is Go back to bridgemate scoring where you were before, and you'll notice now that the event has finished. All the rows are blue, all of the results are in, everything's okay. Now, step 27 of the quick reference guide tells us at this point it's good practice to click on read all results, so we'll do that. So that just makes sure all the data is lifted off of the bridgemate servers, and we've got the latest results in. So we'll do that. Now we've got all the results in, we would we now need to look at are there any strange results? Are there any anomalies there? Okay, so to do that, what I'm going to do is change the data in the program. I've got a real example from an actual event that I want to discuss. This particular event in front of us right now is a simulated event, and it would be far easier if I use a real event that we've played at the club. So I'm going to change to that now. Okay, so all I've done is I'm still on the same screen, but I've just changed the data in the program for the results to some real results that were played at the club. It gives me a chance to show you the warnings of anomalous scores that come up. So if we want to know, are there any strange scores or anything that looks a bit dodgy, we click on reports. So we go to this tab here. And there are some potential anomalies here. So there's 3 listed here. Now, one of the problems with EBUScore is it gets a bit messy dealing with this. You have to jump. You might find yourself jumping around different screens. So a little tip is to click on Print Potential Anomalies. If you do that, what happens is a notepad file opens up on screen, and that just lists what those potential score problems are. You can minimize that and come back to it, open it up when you need to, just to refer it. It's the equivalent of writing it down on a bit of paper, but without having to go through the bother of that. Okay, so that's my little tip for how to deal with those scores. And so we've got problems here with both boards 10 and board 16 to look at. Okay, so we need to go now to the score section to have a look at those. So we return back to the results tab, and then we press return again to get us to the main menu. Then we go to enter scores. And now what we've got here is a screen where all the scores for each of the boards are accessible to us. So we click here on the board number. This is a little bit similar to how it looked in the ScoreBridge program as well. And just remind, we've already forgotten where the anomalies were, haven't we? So this is why we just reopen that temporary notepad. And we see that both board 16 and board 10 were where the anomalies were. So let's look at board 16 first. So we click along the bottom there, that brings up board 16. And you can see, so let's just remind ourselves exactly what the problem was. And the problem there is that both North, South and East, West have played in no trumps at higher than the 2 level. So the program is flagging that as it might be a bit strange. Linked to that is that one pair went 5 tricks down as well. Now, when we looked at this, and when you actually look at the hand record, you can see what's happened. One pair has ended in a very silly contract. They've ended in no trump. They shouldn't have been in it. It really should be an East-West contract on that board. North-South somehow ended in no trumps and went 5 tricks down. So you can assure yourself that there's actually nothing wrong with that. That's you can look at talk that through with the director, and we found there's no problem. Similarly, actually, when we investigated board 10, we found a very similar issue here that that somebody made a rather silly bid, ended up in a contract they should never have been in. Program just flags that. So there's actually nothing wrong with either of those anomalies. So we can close that down and we don't need to worry about them. But what I would like to do is show you how to change scores or correct scores, because obviously one of the things that might happen is at this point you may have some yellow slips where people have filled in score corrections that are needed during the evening. Sometimes the wrong scores go into bridge mates, and players realise it, they fill in a form and they give it to you at the end to make the correction. So let's make a correction. So I'm going to jump to board 11 and let's imagine that this contract here, 5 diamonds -2 by East, let's assume that actually that was incorrectly scored and it should have been doubled. And the players agree that it should have been doubled. They just put in the wrong score, and it's the correct table slip is filled in to justify, to verify that both East West and North South agree that it should be doubled. So I need to make that correction. So if you need to change a score, you go to this column on the right hand side here. So board 1 and North South 1 versus pair 18. Just click into that board here, and now we can correct the right score in. So if you need any help with this, there's a button you can click here, Score Entry Help, and that tells you how to enter it, what you can enter, the format that you might want to enter the scores in. For example, 1N plus 1 W 6 hearts means 1 no trump by West, making 8 tricks and with the 6 of hearts led. So yes, so it's that form of entry, and that tells you how to do that. So you can return from that. So that's how to make the error. So we wanted, this needed to be 5 diamonds doubled. So we put in 5D doubled minus 2 by East. I think that's the way to do it. Yeah. 5 diamonds doubled minus. So now it's now changed the score to there. Okay, so that's one way to make a score change. Let's think of another example of something. Might be, let's jump around. Let's just suppose that this pair here, so the last round of the evening, 19 versus 8, tell you that actually they forgot to arrow switch. So that's quite a common occurrence. So let's assume that the movement believes that they've played it this way round, North-South is 19 and East-West is 8. Actually, they didn't arrow switch, so they've actually played it the wrong way round. So we need to correct that. Quickest way to do that is just go across to the score tab, put in an A, and it tells you, please confirm arrow switch. And if you watch now, 19 and 8 will swap over on that entry. So that's a really easy, neat way of just correcting the error that often comes up where players forget to arrow switch. Maybe the first board of the arrow switch round, some players forget to do it. They tell you about it later. Easy to fix, no problem. Okay. The other thing you could look at, let's just jump to another board. So let's assume there was a problem with 23, and let's assume this time the director made an award or made a ruling that actually the contract needs to be scored as 50-50. Okay, so you could type in 50-50, or you could type 60-40, or of course 40-60, depending on which way the ruling. So that's a way to make score adjustments. Okay. Those are probably the most common things to fix, really. So changing the contract or the result, and making score adjustments and arrow switches. Those are probably the most commonly occurring things to change in at this stage of the scoring process. So I think I've covered the ones that I most wanted to show you in the demonstration. So I'm going to return to the event menu. Okay, so back at the event menu, we've checked the scores, we're happy with the players. What's less? What else is left to do? Well, if we didn't know, we can just refer back once more, of course, to the quick reference guide, and we'll find that the next section deals with printing and uploading. And so there's a few steps to do here, first of all, which is to generate the results and print it out. Then we start to do with the internet functions, which are creating a bridgewebs file and uploading that, and also dealing with the EBUScore Universal Membership System file that used to be called P2P in ScoreBridge, but it's now called EBUScore. But it's the file that we create and upload to the English Bridge Union, which puts the results in their database against each player, so we can award so that they can then award master points and change national gradings based on the performance. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do that, and that really is the final step of this whole process. So let's do that and hopefully take you through to conclusion. So first thing to do is to go to section 31, step 31 of the quick reference guide will tell you that you need to go to reports. So this is where you generate the ranking. You can get a wealth of data in different formats. You can print scorecards, travelers, all kinds of stuff here. really all you're mostly ever going to be interested in is ranks. So under print menu, you just make sure that ranks is there. The print options, you want the ranks plus the master points for most events. So just tick that box there. And then you've got the option here of exactly how it's printed, what format it's printed. So Notepad's the default. Let's just leave it with Notepad for a minute and we'll click display on screen to see the result. So this is the fictional result that we were working with earlier. Let me make that a bit smaller so you can see it, because I realized I made it too big for the screen viewer. Okay, so there's the result, and interestingly the political parties did very well together, collaborating, and this poor guy who had to play with Donald Trump didn't do particularly well. No doubt it was all my fault and Donald was blameless. Anyway, so there's the result. Now we can print that, so let's close that down. If we click send to printer, it would print in that form. So that's a Notepad file. It's not particularly glamorous. It doesn't look particularly smart in the way it prints out, but it is the result. We could stick that on the notice board. Little tip that I do is actually to print it out in a different format. So I click it. I like to print the result in a web table. So you don't have to do this. You can just stick with Notepad and send to printer and it will all print out and you'll get a piece of paper with a result on. But if you want to look a bit nicer, click on web table. Now click display on screen. And what happens is a web browser opens. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too wide for the program that I'm using to show you the result. So I'm going to make it a bit smaller. There you go. To show you my screen. Right. Okay. That's a much smarter way of seeing the result. So it's in a web browser. The default on my PC is Edge. If we did it on the laptop in the club, it would actually open in Chrome. But it doesn't matter which browser it opens in. That's how it's going to look. And it's actually much better to print out from there. And you can print it out from there. You would click on, depending on the browser, obviously the way you print is different. So in Edge you have to do it this way. I would print that, but we don't need to do that because that's going to go on my home printer. Okay, so that's one way to see that, to see a much smarter looking way of printing the result, but not essential. And if you're stuck, as I say, just go to send to printer and it will send the Notepad form to printer, and you don't need to worry about that. Okay, so you've got the result and you put it on the notice board. So the last two things to do are to deal with uploads. And because the uploading deals with the internet, we click on this button here called Internet Functions. So this takes us through to, this is really the last place we have to do any work in this program. So the first thing to do, we've got a title here, bridgewebs. So brilliant, we're going to create the bridgewebs file. So we do that. And it's been created, and it asks us if we want to upload it to the Pinner Bridge website. Now I don't want to do that because I don't want all those fictional data appearing on Pinner's website. So I'm going to click no, but actually we would click yes if this was a real result and you were submitting it. It doesn't matter because you don't see anything different whether I click yes or no. But I'm going to click no, and it doesn't go up. But obviously if it was a real result, you would have clicked yes, and then you would be able to go to the club website by clicking this button just to verify that the result has actually appeared on the club's website through bridgewebs. And of course it does. And we've tested that several times with about 4 results so far, and it works faultlessly, so no problem. So that is how to upload the result to the club website. The other thing to do, I just point out on there the club's code and password are set by default in the program, so you don't have to worry about that. The bridgeweb credentials are already there. But the next thing to do is the EBU submission. So we create the EBU UMS file. So it used to be, and even now it tells you it's P2P, it used to be a P2P file that we created. It no longer is that. It's now called a UMS file, but it's the same thing. We create the file, and it tells you that it's created. It will tell you what directory it's stored in. It's open in a notepad. You can close that down. This is just a copy of the file that's opening. Now, because these are fictional database. There aren't any EBU matches on there. There's only one there for the visitor who had an EBU number. So it's pretty much gobbledygook that's in this file, and we wouldn't want to submit it for real. But we've made the file. The process then is exactly the same as we did in ScoreBridge. So to bring that file up, we have to actually go to the English Bridge Union website. So we do that. And we need to put in the right details, which I'm going to get those. I'll have to pause and put those in my. Okay, so I just had to change browser there, so because I had the club's EBU credentials on a different browser on my PC, and the one that came up was my own personal one, which wasn't going to be very helpful. So if you were doing this for real in the club using the club laptop, then when you click on go to the EBU site, it would take you through to this screen with the right EBU number there and the right password already pre-populated, and you would have to open like that. And this is essentially this process that you should be familiar with through ScoreBridge. We've already done this countless times using when we were using ScoreBridge as our scoring program. There's really no different. So if you remember, the thing to do is you go to submit. You then drag and drop or browse for the file. So you would click on browse. It's already set up to go to exactly the folder where we store those files, and then you would upload it in the normal way to the EBU website. Again, I don't want to do that because it's a fictional file of a session that with players that aren't members, and we don't really want to start putting all that kind of data in there. But that's I'm sure that if you've been scoring at Pinner Bridge Club before, you would be familiar with this part of the process. So I'm actually going to log out and not do that. And we go back to there. So that would be how we would cope with the EBU submission. Let me know if you've got any problems with that, or it's perhaps best to demonstrate it for real on a real event, and I'm happy to do that with anybody. So I'm going to click return, and I'm going to click return again. So we've now done everything. So let's just recap on where we were. If you just look at printing and uploading, you can see that we've covered printing the ranked reports. We've gone to internet functions, we've done the bridgewebs upload, and we've created the EBU UMS file, we've uploaded it to the EBU website. The last things we need to do are to close the event. So let's just show you how to do that, and then we'll do a recap on where we are in the overall process, and close out the video. So we've done everything we need to do. We just need to close out exit event, and then we just return to main menu. And now we just exit the program, and that's it. Okay, so let's just recap on where we are in the process. One moment. So we've done all that. Okay, yeah, so we've completed everything on our quick reference guide. So all I really wanted to say now was, if you need further help, there are 3 main documents you need to think about. The quick reference guide, which I've talked about endlessly through these videos. There's a hard copy of that available in a file in the club. You will have that emailed to you. We'll put it on the website as well. I still think that is the best place to go to guide you through the process. It's always a good start. Okay. But there's a more detailed folder, more detailed manual that I prepared called Scoring a Pairs Event. It runs to about 30 pages. It goes through each and every of those steps that we've covered in these videos in a bit more detail, shows you what to click on, and there's a bit more of an explanation there. That is your main go-to if you want a bit more help. And then the other thing I've done is influenced by a fantastic document prepared by Oxford Bridge Club. So the people at Oxford Bridge Club put together a document that help you show some of the problems that you might come into. So I've taken that document, copied it sort of shamelessly, but I have adapted it, made it very much specific to Pinner, and reordered some of the information in it to make it, I think, more accessible. So I've now called that document Using EBUScore and BridgeMates Common Problems and How to Fix Them. There's about 30 pages in there. That covers all kinds of situations, such as if you need to change the movement halfway through, if you have problems with connections to the BridgeMate server. It covers rare things that might go on, such as what happens if a player leave the club halfway through the event. How do we deal with that? Now, that happened recently at the club, caused a big problem with how to deal with that movement in Scorebridge. We didn't have anybody who knew how to deal with that. It's a lot easier in EBUScore. So if that unfortunate event happens, we can fix that without too much problem. So there's again about 30 pages there to refer to, common problems and how to fix them. I don't think that's good bedtime reading. I wouldn't recommend you spend too much time studying it, but it's there as a reference, and you might want to dip into it as you get more and more familiar with the whole scoring process. So those are the main areas to go for further help. I'm happy to spend time taking any of our scorers through the process and helping demonstrate them, helping to be there if they've got any problems. Questions or feedback on the whole lot, particularly on the videos that I've shown, what's missing, what's not clear, what would you like to see? Let me know to my email address there. If you're from another club or you're not involved with Pinner and you've been watching this, please let me know what you thought of any of this. Is it helpful? Again, is there things here that you didn't understand that you thought I could have explained in another way? Happy to do that. One thing I probably will do is put together some top tips and post a video soon of some of my top tips for how to make this, how to run EBUScore in the smoothest and best possible way. So that's probably work to look out for on YouTube at some point soon. Other than that, I'm going to sign off here. Hope you found all of these useful, and as I say, please give me thumbs up, feedback, anything you want, and let me know how you get on. Enjoy your bridge and enjoy scoring. Thanks very much. Bye now.